Hi, my name is Andy Sharp. I'm a journalist at Nikkei Asia. I'm here today with Chris Horton. He's a Taipei-based journalist. He's been in Taiwan since 2015, reporting extensively on issues such as geopolitics, the economy, society, and everything else to do with Taiwan and the region, writing for publications such as the New York Times, Bloomberg, and of course Nikkei Asia. Before living in Taipei, he spent more than a decade in China and a couple of years in Hong Kong. Just this July, his book, Ghost Nation, The Story of Taiwan and Its Struggles for Survival, came out. And today, Chris is here to speak about the book. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. It's great to be here.
So, Chris, can you briefly tell us what the book is all about?
Sure. There's a lot of misunderstandings about Taiwan for various reasons. And I wanted to clarify and kind of provide just a basic history and explanation of what Taiwan is, where it came from, how it got into the geopolitical kind of situation it's in, where it's diplomatically isolated despite being a near G20 economy and a supplier of some of the most important technology to most of the developed world.
So what takeaway do you want readers to get from this book?
Well, basically that Taiwan is very important and it's going to be a big part of our future one way or the other. If it retains its sovereignty, it's going to remain a democratic bulwark in a region where authoritarianism is on the rise. If it loses its sovereignty due to an invasion by China, then we're going to see Taiwan become a very different place.
So this is basically why the world should be paying attention to Taiwan now.
Yes. Also, of course, tech is a big issue.
By tech, you're of course referring to semiconductors and the manufacturers such as TSMC, etc.
Primarily TSMC. TSMC is the world's biggest supplier of the most advanced semiconductors. And if TSMC were either to fall into Beijing's hands intact, or if it were to be destroyed during an invasion, then you would basically have the Chinese Communist Party being in charge of the world's most advanced semiconductors.
How likely is it that China might attempt to take over Taiwan?
Well, they're certainly preparing for it. They just built their they just sailed their third aircraft carrier through the Taiwan Strait. It's not commissioned yet. It's named the Fujian, which is the province right across from Taiwan.
Right.
Xi Jinping has made it clear that he wants to take Taiwan, and the PLA has been instructed to be ready in the very near future. So, I think, if these are empty threats, that's fine, but I think we should take them at face value.
I see. Bit concerning.
Yeah.
And just going back to the book, you call Taiwan a ghost nation. Can you explain the title and explain what it means in terms of Taiwan's identity and its position in the international order?
Well, ghost nation is kind of a riff off of Ghost Island, which is a term that was originally used by the Japanese when referring to Taiwan, primarily because this was probably in the 1800s. You had a lot of communicable diseases there that would before science could explain it. There was people would be felled by these invisible diseases. So ghosts were perhaps a good explanation for that. Later on, the Chinese Nationalist Party, when it arrived in China in 1945, began referring to to Taiwan as Guidao, which means ghost island.
I see.
And using it kind of as a derogatory term to denigrate Taiwan. And they were imposing a Chinese identity on Taiwanese people. And this term was used to kind of say, like, look, you're small, you're part of China.
You're not much, basically, yeah.
Yeah. With the arrival of the KMT in 1945, the term ghost island in Mandarin, Guidao, was used to denigrate Taiwan and make Taiwanese people think that they were inferior to China. And Today, it's being used kind of ironically by younger Taiwanese. So there's even a rapper named Duagi who raps in Taiwanese, and he has I think it came out in 2016. I might be off, but a fairly recent song called Guidao.
Okay, let's go on to the identity of the people in Taiwan. Do they think of themselves as Taiwanese? I know there's indigenous people on the island. Also, many people's previous generations came from China. So, how would you describe the evolution of the people of Taiwan's identity over the last few decades?
Well, since democratization, which came in the 1990s following the end of 4 decades of martial law, where a Chinese identity was imposed on the Taiwanese people, basically, at gunpoint, you have this opening up, this reemergence of a local native Taiwanese identity, and that's complicated a bit by the fact that in 1949, you had 2 million people arriving from China with the Chinese Nationalist Party, fleeing the communist revolution in China. So over the decades, those people have become Taiwanified or become more Taiwanese, but they still might identify with China, some sort of Chinese identity. But the vast polling shows consistently that the sense of a distinct Taiwanese identity is it's becoming more prevalent in Taiwanese society.
Interesting. And you mentioned at the start that you wanted to explain the misconceptions people have about Taiwan and its people. What are these misconceptions?
Well, one of the big misconceptions is that they're essentially Chinese and have always been Chinese. For 50 years, Taiwan was a Japanese colony. People spoke Japanese. The Japanese influence in Taiwan runs very deep. Also, as you mentioned, the indigenous Taiwanese. There's been a few waves of Chinese migrations to Taiwan, and Taiwanese people are a reflection of these different waves. So you have the indigenous original inhabitants, but there was also a lot of intermarriage between indigenous Taiwanese and Chinese migrants over the centuries. So, and then you have the more recently arrived people who might be called mainlanders or Waishengren. But even they have become Taiwanese over time. Whether or not they identify as such, that's up to them, of course.
Of course. And let's look at the big sort of geopolitical picture here. Taiwan has never declared independence. Do you think it needs to? Do you think it will do?
Well, I feel like Taiwan kind of has declared independence, or at least a couple of the presidents, former presidents have, but like retroactive independence. So what they've basically said is like, look, there's no need to declare independence because we already are independent. And Taiwan is a sovereign country. It has its own democratic government, its own military, its own currency, its own customs regime. So, I guess the question, if you talk about independence, is independence from who? Independence from the PRC? Taiwan's never been part of the PRC, the People's Republic of China. So, I think the original kind of phrase, independence, Taiwanese independence, it was actually in reference to the Republic of China, which is still the government of Taiwan today. It's the government that fled the communist revolution.
And looking at what's happening across the Taiwan Strait, I believe that most Taiwanese want to keep the status quo with vis-a-vis China.
Yes.
Everybody. Can they do that?
Can they? Well, to your first point, yes. Most overwhelmingly, Taiwanese people want to maintain the status quo. They want to keep their sovereignty, keep their de facto independence. But when it comes to China's plans, there's a big challenge there. China's a massive country. It's very close by, about 180 kilometers away. And then you've got the biggest military buildup the world's seen in peacetime ever. And it's all aimed at getting Taiwan and then perhaps acquiring further territory. The Ryukyu Islands are claimed by some Chinese nationalists as Chinese territory.
Okinawa, basically, yeah.
Okinawa, yeah. Also, some people believe that that the Philippines, or at least the northern Philippines, are inherently Chinese territory. So there's if Taiwan falls to China, you have the People's Liberation Army on Japan and the Philippines' doorstep. So it's very important to both of these countries with populations of around 120 million people to as Abe Shinzo said, if something happens to Taiwan, it's a big deal for Japan.
Yeah, I mean, Japan could end up getting involved in a war with China.
Right, and China appears to be preparing to potentially wage a war against not just Taiwan, but also the U.S. And as well as Japan and the Philippines. And its rocket force has been developing with that in mind. So you have missiles known as the Guam killer that have been developed in China. And so a strike on Guam and perhaps other U.S. bases in the region as well are probably in the cards.
Well, there are tens of thousands of U.S. troops in Japan, most of them in Okinawa, right on Taiwan's doorstep.
Yeah.
So clearly the U.S. would get involved in some way, you would think.
It's possibly even if it didn't want to be involved.
Exactly. And going back to keeping on the U.S., we have President Donald Trump, and he doesn't seem to be the biggest backer of Taiwan right now. Would you say that? Do you think that the U.S. would actually come to Taiwan's defense in the event of an attack?
It's really hard to say. So there are some people in the Trump administration who have kind of floated the idea of, we could get along without Taiwan if worse comes to worse. But I think it's really difficult to speculate what the U.S. reaction would be. But I think in general, I would assume that if there is going to be some sort of attack, that the U.S. will be drawn in whether it likes it or not.
I see. And as you mentioned earlier, we're seeing increasingly authoritarianism rising in the region and other parts of the world.
Yeah.
What lessons, therefore, do you think that Taiwan's democracy, after years of being under authoritarian rule, decades even, what lessons does Taiwan's democracy offer to other parts of Asia or even Western democracies?
Well, I think, as a young democracy, when you visit Taiwan, when you speak with Taiwanese people, you really get this sense of openness and candor, and Taiwanese people are very very willing to share their opinions, and they have a lot of different opinions. It's also one of the freest media environments in the world, and I think it's ranked number one in Asia, even freer than Japan. So I think I don't know about lessons, but I find it personally. I find Taiwan's evolution, and a fairly rapid one at that, from military dictatorship to such a free, thriving democracy. I find it inspirational, and I think there's many reasons for democracies to rally behind Taiwan and help deter China, and 23.4 million of those reasons are Taiwanese people. But there's also self-interest, as mentioned before, semiconductors and just general the strategic location of Taiwan.
But other nations across the region are young democracies, places like South Korea, which had decades of dictatorship, also the Philippines, Indonesia, etc. They are all now democratic states, all have their issues like any country. But in terms of Taiwan itself, what threats does it face to its democracy? Is it purely from the PRC, or are there any other factors?
I mean, any democracy is capable of backsliding, and I think if you look at some of the larger democracies in the world right now, there's definitely been plenty of that. So I think in terms of the Taiwanese people, yes, any society is going to have people who don't like democracy, but I think because they fought so hard and for so long to run their own country, that I think that would be pretty unlikely. I mean, it's been basically colonized or ruled by external forces for 400 years. And the struggle for democracy was intergenerational, going back to the Qing dynasty, and then the Japanese era, and then martial law era. So I think the Taiwanese people fought so hard for their democracy that I think it's really unlikely that they're just going to give it up.
Interesting. So going back to the book, what was your personal inspiration for writing this book?
Well, I mean, I think going back to the just misconceptions about Taiwan, there's a lot of misconceptions, including in the media. There's.
Do you have examples of that?
Well, yeah, I think the use of the term mainland to refer to China in a Taiwan context is one good example. International media often uses the term mainland China. Mainland China is a term that the Chinese Nationalist Party in the 1940s introduced to the discourse. And it's what it does is it implies that there's more to China than just the mainland, and that more is Taiwan.
I see. So that's one of the misconceptions about Taiwan that you wanted to clear up in this book.
Right. Yeah. And I think the fact that most media organizations are unwilling to call Taiwan a country is also kind of an issue, because it creates a sense of Taiwan not being a country in people's minds.
Okay. And in the process of writing the book, I know you were working on it for several years. Did your perspective on Taiwan change in any way during the research and writing of this book?
I think the Japanese influence, the Japanese era is really poorly understood, especially in English language media coverage of Taiwan. And it's kind of, you get the feeling that Taiwan just rose out of the sea in 1949, and 2 million Chinese just evacuated, fled war and went there. But Taiwan was really created by the Japanese as an administrative unit. It was brought into modernity by Japan, and so I think one of the areas where I learned the most while researching this book was during the Japanese era.
And this book, it's out in English, of course.
Yes.
Will it be translated into other languages?
Yes, it's going to be translated into Mandarin Chinese, so in traditional characters. So it'll be available in Taiwan. It's also going to be translated into Polish and Czech.
Oh, okay.
And hopefully Japanese too.
That would be great. And just to finish up, what are your plans now? Are you planning a follow-up? Is there more books about Taiwan that you're thinking about writing?
Well, it was a pretty big project, so I don't know if I'm going to go for another book right now. But I do think a book about the Republic of China, which is it's the government of Taiwan, but it was founded more than 100 years ago in China. That's a fascinating story as well in its own right. So perhaps I might dig into that.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, Chris. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you, Andy.
Cheers.
Great.